With that said, Nick, let's talk about the other live show that just happened this week that you watched, that I did not watch, but you did. So tell me about it.
The Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase plus Indie World Showcase. Usually they do these separately.
Sentence,
but,
yeah. It's a double whammy, 40-minute show, right?
Yeah, they combined it. It's basically a Nintendo Direct. It just doesn't have many like first-party announcements in it. So.
And Nick, no announcements about the next Nintendo Switch successor, okay? Guys, stop fucking asking.
We're probably going to get one soon.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But yeah, it was, they started off with the Indie Showcase and then did the Partner Showcase, which the Partner Showcase, you usually get some more high caliber announcements in. Sure. Again, it's nothing like a regular Nintendo Direct where like you might get like a Mario or a Zelda or something in there, but it's, you know, bigger AA, AAA, you know, other kind of noteworthy announcements, let's say. Not to, you know, discredit the indies, but you know, usually bigger companies are involved in the Partner Showcase is what I'm saying. So starting off with like the indie world, I just have like a couple of highlights that I personally pulled out from this three. I don't know if like that's fine because there's a lot of stuff in this indie world that like I wasn't super hot on myself, but there was still a couple of things.
Sure.
I did grab this one for you specifically, which is Sea of Stars DLC that got showcased.
Yeah, dude.
Free
DLC, by the way. Free.
Yeah. And it looks really cool. It's set in this like, you know, twisted kind of carnival kind of area.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, oh shit.
Yeah, there's these you know, new gameplay mechanics that they're teasing in the battle system. It is a little bit of a wait though. They put a window of spring 2025 on it for release. So probably gonna have to wait a little bit for
Nick. I mean, if you ever get around to playing this game, man, it's one of those games that like you know, after you play it and like it kind of sits with you, it kind of grows. The more I think about this game, the more I'm like, all right, it's beautiful, it's interesting, it's fun. It's a whole package.
Do you think you'll hop back into that? Because the one thing that's hard with DLCs, especially with me, is like if there's too much time between it, sometimes I don't.
That's
feel like getting back in.
The likelihood of me jumping back in for the DLC is low because Again, I know it sounds weird, but as someone who's like very focused on the narrative, I love the story of games. Even if it's not like this, even if the game doesn't have a story, like then like, you know, oh, this is gonna sound so stupid, but like even if I play Minecraft, right, I'm playing with like there's like a narrative structure in my head. I know that sounds crazy, so like I'll end it when I'm like, okay, this feels like a point where I can stop. Like this feels like the end of a season, an episode, whatever. So that being said. When I finish a game like this, and it's such a little perfect package that I'm like, I can look back fondly. I know the whole kind of adventure, and again, it's such a fucking cool ride that like I wish, and I didn't stream or anything, so it was all just like, you know, something I have that I just kind of remember my experience with it. But there's like moments where I wish I could experience someone like you know experience that for the first time because it's like a cool surprise halfway through the game when you're like, what the fuck? So yeah, there's a plug for anyone who's has any interest in Sea of Stars. It's a great game. It's on Game Pass, and I think it was a PS Plus game too, so you have no excuse not to play it, right? Anyway,
yeah, definitely. The other one that stood out to me in the indie world is a game called Morsels, and this one visually is very intriguing. The developers described it as a top-down kind of roguelike shooter/action game, but it has this like almost like Garbage Pail Kids or something kind of aesthetic to it. Like
yeah, with the VHS like scan lines.
Yeah, there's like these creatures that you come across, and you collect these little things called morsels, and it
find the morsels
kind of like mutates or grows like into different
this game has
creatures.
A crazy art style. I really like it's like so it's like
yeah that
so strong, and everything kind of just feels right, you know, like everything connects well.
Yes, it has a very like unified art style, and It definitely looks really interesting. You and I have casually gotten into roguelikes here and there.
Yes, yeah.
And you know, maybe this one will be one that like will be one to keep on the radar. It certainly from an aesthetic point of view, it definitely stood out to me. And
Dude,
it's
I can only imagine this game being an absolute trip if you're like high or something. Like just like the just getting, like where am I? is spaced. But anyway. Yeah, no, this looks
it is
looks
being
sick.
published by Annapurna.
Hell yeah.
Annapurna Interactive. So there is, some precedent there with some quality. So definitely one to keep an eye on is More Souls.
Okay.
But yeah, let's move on to the Nintendo Direct.
Wow, you
partner
don't want to talk
showcase.
about Date Everything, Nick? Or
I
Power
don't wanna
Watch
talk
Simulator
about
Shrek DLC? You don't want to talk about this stuff, Nick? What the hell? Oh my
They
god.
didn't, appeal to me directly, but the Shrek DLC is funny, I suppose. The one funny thing about it, I will say, is that everything's covered in like rainbow stuff because it's in a swamp, so everything would just be covered in dirt anyway.
Yeah.
So I did find that pretty funny, but yeah, there's other like indies and
Europa
stuff. There's
looks
a new
cool.
Coffee Talk game that's coming out.
Yep.
And other stuff like that. So
But with that
definitely
said,
a lot of
now,
cool stuff.
Now we can get into the rest of the show.
Yeah, and the partner showcase, I think, as far as past partner showcases go, like I think this one's probably like a pretty middle tier one.
Sure.
There wasn't anything that I was like, super blown away by, but there is still some interesting things to talk about.
Yeah.
The first of which was, the first thing that they showed, Tetris Forever, which is a really interesting collection of old Tetris games. This is being put together by Digital Eclipse, which they were behind the Atari 50th collection, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
nice.
Cowabunga collection, as well as the Llama Soft, the Jeff Minter story, which Tetris Forever is part of their Gold Master series, which is what Llama Soft and the Atari 50 collection are a part of. So basically, it's these collections of games, and then there's like documentary footage that they go out and create that's included with this. So this has behind the scenes stuff and interviews with, talking about the history of Tetris, as well as a new game in here called Tetris Times something. I forget exactly the title, but basically it's a Tetris game that it'll like shift different styles and versions of Tetris from throughout the years, like mid-game. So that one just seemed really cool. I'm a really big fan of what Digital Eclipse does, and I like that they preserve these collections of stuff, even stuff that some of these games, I mean, like, NES Tetris, for instance, they also announced that that's coming to the NES Online service later this year. It's like that you would understand people bringing back, or like the Game Boy version that's already on there. But things like Hatris, like, that's probably not coming back in any way, except for when Digital Eclipse comes in and does a collection like this. So,
yep.
Obviously, I'm going to highlight that whenever possible, because I just love the work that they do over there.
Yeah. Now here, I'll hijack for a second, because there's actually one game in the showcase that was actually going to be in the inbox, and so I figured this is the perfect time to talk about it. Now here's the thing, let's see here. This is from Caracol Games. Here's the game. I'll pitch this as this. The game is Star Overdrive, and it's described as essentially a Zelda Breath of the Wild homage with a sci-fi twist on an indie scale. Is the way it is described. That's how they describe it themselves. Now here's the thing. I thought this looked cool, and that's why I wanted to plug it. Here's the thing. The Caracol Games, that sounded familiar to me. It's because they are the developers of Downward Enhanced. And you guys know what I think about that game. So, that being said, I'm still excited for this game. I want to make that clear. Still shouting out this game, despite Downward. Okay? We don't hold grudges here.
This was one of my highlights from the show. I think it does look really cool.
Yeah.
Specifically all these like, hoverboard sequences. Obviously that's gonna, start lighting my sensors up because I immediately go to like, Tony Hawk, like arcade,
As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this is a Nick game. And so
yeah.
So I mean, look,
a Breath of the Wild or a Zelda homage that they use in the language there. I definitely got a vibe from the trailer also. So that'll be interesting to see.
I'm only going to be a little bit hesitant, but at the same time, this game's coming out Q1 2025, and Downward came out in 2017, so that's quite a bit of time for a developer to grow up. So, I'm excited for Star Overdrive. Nick, what else you got for the Indie Partner Showcase?
Let's hit up another collection. This was arguably one of the more surprising reveals, just because Capcom's been busy bees over there with a lot of other collections and re-releases. Yeah. But they announced the Capcom Fighting Collection 2, which has another round of fighting games from Capcom's past. This time, interestingly, though, we're starting to get into some of the 3D fighters, not just 2D pixel art stuff. So
nice.
Again, not saying anything's bad about that, but there's interesting stuff like Project Justice, Plasma Sword, which I had never even heard of. But probably the big headliners for a lot of people are Power Stone 1 and 2, which are Dreamcast games, kind of like 3D brawlers that, as far as I'm aware, I think have just been locked on the Dreamcast. Like, I don't think those ever got like any sort of other re-release, but a lot of people have played those. So, definitely some interesting stuff. Same kind of things that I was just describing with Digital Eclipse. These Capcom collections are awesome. It's great that, again, random things like Plasma Sword and, Capcom Fighting Evolution. I've heard that game's maybe not the greatest, but like stuff like that can have a second life and come back and be preserved for future generations. And they always like load these games and collections up with tons of like, concept art, like marquee artwork from the arcade cabinets and stuff like that. So that stuff's all awesome. And just briefly, they followed that up with a official release date for the Marvel vs. Capcom collection. So digitally, that comes out in September. And there is a physical version, interestingly enough, that if you pre-order, there is a what do you call it? Like a comic book, basically, like a new comic book that features the Capcom characters and Marvel stuff with original artwork and everything. So that one's coming a little bit later. That's not releasing in September, as far as I'm aware. But Marvel vs. Capcom, which is another very highly anticipated one, coming right around the corner.
Yeah. Interesting to see Stalker on there. I don't know if Stalker is meant to be played on the Nintendo Switch, but it is the older. It's the Legends of the Zone trilogy, so it's an older one. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, shouldn't maybe have an issue running. I'm sure if that re-release collection performs well on other systems, I'm sure the Switch could probably handle it, though.
Whoa, what is this? I don't know about this. This is SpongeBob SquarePants, the Patrick Star game?
Yeah, so this was a new announcement also. It's a physics-based, like,
it's a goat simulator.
I don't think it's a puzzle game, but kind of, yeah, actually. Basically, it's like a bunch of like
that's genius.
mini games and exploration stuff, all starring Patrick. The narrators were, throwing out puns everywhere.
Dude, that's genius. Honestly, oh my god, that's they're onto something here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I don't know how many times over the years of SpongeBob video games have been released where SpongeBob is not like the primary focus, right? He's in the game. They show him in the trailer.
I feel like there's there's like some controversy with SpongeBob that we're gonna unearth about how he I don't know, had a bender when he was doing the show or something. Because they're doing solo. Like Patrick's getting a game, Sandy just got a movie. I mean, where's SpongeBob? What's going on?
Right.
PR's covering up something.
I think it's interesting that they are, obviously SpongeBob's always going to pique my interest as well.
Yes,
but
yep.
Watching the gameplay, I was like, it looks good. Like the art style, it definitely looks in line with like the more recent games, the Cosmic Shake and the Battle for Bikini Bottom remaster.
Yes, yeah.
But at the same time, like where those are like more traditional platformers, and this specifically having a focus on like physics-based stuff, I was like, I don't know if I would necessarily be super into that or not, but it definitely looks cool and charming, so I'm sure it'll be a fun game.
All right, Nick, what else you got? Highlights?
For me personally, that was kind of it. Like, there are some other things that are interesting and of note, like
Civ
Yakuza
7 looks. Why would you do this to yourself?
Civ is on Switch, the sixth one. I know,
and Seven's here, man. So... Seven's here.
Cool to see that they're like supporting it still.
It's just
Yakuza Kiwami was what they ended the direct on, which was kind of a surprise for some people because I had seen a bit of an interview with somebody at RGG Studio.
Actually, it doesn't look too bad though.
Talking about how they weren't sure if there would be like an audience on Switch for their type of game.
Yeah.
So clearly they've maybe had a change of heart on that, and they're
right.
bringing over Kiwami first here. So this was like, it's kind of an interesting final thing for like a Switch Direct.
Well, I was going to say, how long do you think they'll keep supporting the Switch once the successor comes out next year? Because obviously, I mean, look, ideally you'd want it to be supported for years, years on, because there's like 100 million units out there in the wild. But at the same time, at what point, obviously for indies it's going to be fine, but there's a lot of games where it's going to be a clear bottleneck where if Xbox Series S games are kind of giving developers trouble, then I have to imagine the Switch One is going to be a little bit further behind.
Well, for me personally, I'm honestly kind of surprised that like PS4 and Xbox One versions of games still come out. I thought
it's just it's just those numbers.
A year or
out
two
there.
ago, we would have moved on, but yeah, like you said, there's still the install base, and I guess there's still.
I think it's something about
enough
like
people buying and playing those versions.
I think it was part of the fact that you had the COVID and the shortage kind of muddied the because usually it's like a distinct launch window where you're like, all right, everything is kind of moving on from here. Like this is the new generation, and then expect things to fall off fast. And I think with people not being able to get their hands on a PS5 or an Xbox Series X for a while and that kind of whole thing, I think we're at a point where most stuff we'll see still comes out for PS4, Xbox One. I am seeing it now a little bit better, where it's not better, but a little bit more of games not being only next or current gen, but
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo, even after the Switch was out, if I recall correctly, was still supporting 3DS, at least for like another year and a half. So I would expect at least a year of Switch stuff still coming out. But
yeah,
who knows?